There's so many benefits of bringing people together, but I find when you bring people together, it sparks inspiration and energy and confidence to really know we're not alone.
Welcome to another episode of Chief Influencer. I'm your host, Anthony Shop, co-founder of Social Driver. Let's face it, Washington is the center of influence in the US and arguably in the world. Chief Influencer features leaders who have figured out how to break through in today's fragmented and fast-changing environment. Social Driver teamed up with the Communications Board and the George Washington University College of Professional Studies to recognize these incredible leaders as chief influencers and highlight how they inspire and influence others. I am thrilled to welcome today's guest, Darra Gordon, Chief Executive Officer of Family Equality, the national nonprofit dedicated to advancing equality for LGBTQ+ families through advocacy, storytelling, and community. Now, before we dive in, here are a few things I think you should know about today's guest. Number one, Darra is leading the next chapter of family justice innovation. She stepped into the CEO role at Family Equality in March of 2025 at a pivotal moment for LGBTQ+ families facing legislative, social, and economic headwinds. Under her leadership, the organization is sharpening its focus on protecting rights, expanding support and resources, and amplifying the voices of families nationwide. Number two, she brings over 2 decades of bold nonprofit transformation experience. Before Family Equality, Darra served as Deputy President and Chief Operating Officer at GLAAD, where she oversaw operations, fundraising, and strategy, and helped the organization significantly scale its impact. Earlier, she spent more than 15 years at the Hetrick Martin Institute, where she grew national youth services and advanced LGBTQ+ youth empowerment. And number three, she leads with purpose, authenticity, and inclusion. As a proud LGBTQ+ parent raising 3 kids, a family narrative she shares openly, Darra connects her professional mission with a deeply personal one. Her leadership is rooted in the belief that every family deserves love, safety, and belonging, and that true equity requires both operational rigor and cultural courage. Darra, you have been called a powerhouse for nonprofit growth and LGBTQ+ inclusion, a strategic architect of culture-shaping advocacy, and a champion for family resilience and belonging. Today, we are thrilled to call you a chief influencer. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to take you everywhere I go. That was an incredible introduction. I really appreciate it.
Other than me being a little tongue-tied on a couple words, but it was so
great.
much great stuff in your career. And I couldn't help but thinking you are at the right organization at the right moment. Like your experience, you must feel so passionate about this work. And I know you stepped into the CEO role at Family Equality at a moment when LGBTQ+ families are facing both opportunity, but also challenge. How do you
Absolutely.
describe the work of Family Equality today, and why is this moment so important?
Absolutely. Thank you. And I think, as you mentioned, right, we're the only national organization that's dedicated to the freedoms of all LGBTQ families. So no pressure. But again, this is the moment. And so we do 3 really critical things. You can think of ACE if you want to try to remember or think of us. But the first thing is the advocacy. And so we advocate for legal protections on the state, federal, and local level. So things like our 10-year fight for marriage equality, our landmark win against Florida's Don't Say Gay or Trans bill. We are, again, fighting on every level for legal protections for LGBTQ families. The second thing that we do is we connect. So we connect LGBTQ people with each other. We have the largest LGBTQ family gathering in the entire globe. That happens in Provincetown once a year. We also do gatherings in the U.S. South, the Midwest, and throughout the whole country, bringing LGBTQ families together. And do not underestimate the importance of that and really bringing folks together in joy and connectivity. We also connect LGBTQ families to resources, support, webinars from family formation to anything that they need to know around navigating school systems. And so, again, providing the resources and support and connections for our families. The third thing we do is we educate. So we educate businesses, policymakers, educators, and really in the intention of creating more inclusive environments for our families. So right now we're working with schools around navigating inclusive environments and opt out and curriculum and things like that for our families. We are educating businesses around supporting their workforce and providing inclusive benefits for their families. And so those are the three things we do. And it is, to your point, it is a moment. And I think this is what inspired me with over 600 anti-LGBTQ bills introduced just this year alone. It's pretty extraordinary of the attacks. Again, the environment, what we're seeing around that rollback across the board around society or legal protections. And so this is the moment. And I do see the opportunities. I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunities for us. So
Wow, I like the acronym, by the way. Good way to remember those 3
thank
core
you.
things that you all do. They're interconnected as well. And you mentioned those 600 bills. I mean, it's like a scary time for so many families and so many people with all of that. And it's also just a time that we know is, the country is very divided in many ways. But family is a universal concept. And I know you've
Yes.
said that it can be a powerful point of connection in this divided world. How do
Yep.
you use that idea of family to build bridges and overcome that polarization we're seeing?
Um, Absolutely. And I also do wanna mention as well, like, we killed 85% of those bills from last year. So we are fighting back, and it is working. We are making progress, and I love that you asked that question because I always say we use the power of family to create equality. And so, number one, the universality of family, everybody understands what family means. It doesn't matter who you are, how you identify, what your lived experience is. And so being able to speak about the the importance of everybody being able to live that unconditional love and that full belonging that family creates it just opens up hearts, and it opens up minds, I think, in a divided world. I have conversations all the time, from folks on all different aisles. They have all different types of intentions, but family, people get family. They can understand it no matter who they are. And the second thing is that I think is really important to note as well is um, LGBTQ families it's all centered around well-being of children, right? This is about our children and like the work that we're doing to support young children and protect children is again, it's a universal. Nobody, you talk about young people and allowing them to thrive and be protected by their parents or adoption, like through that, being able to have LGBTQ people bring young people to a forever family. It's a universal language, and it's just something that brings people together. And that's what we're all about, right? We're about unifying folks and really bringing everybody together for that experience.
Storytelling must be a really important part of how you do that. I mean, we hear that from so many chief influencers.
Yeah.
Can you talk about your approach to storytelling and
Yes.
how that is, helps you not only even where you are today, but maybe that's something that's been across your career as well?
No, absolutely. I mean, my background, like at GLAAD, this is like I saw firsthand the value and the impact of storytelling. And I think in a world right now where there's so much dehumanization happening and numbness to humans, the storytelling is more critical than ever. And I think when we think about storytelling for us, it really is about showing people who we are, like the joy, the laughter, like we are no different than other families, right? I stress about, my wife saying, did I get the grocery list right? Or, like getting the kids to school and thinking about, oh, their college and, like, so being able to show folks through storytelling who we are is incredibly powerful.
Are there any go-to stories that you and your team have found resonate when you're trying to kill a bill and maybe you're talking to
Oh,
folks that you wouldn't normally agree with on other things?
yeah, absolutely. I think one of our proudest initiatives that we were able to do is one when it came to that decade-long battle for freedom to marry, that Judge Kennedy referred to, the voices of children. And so some of the issues were around, what about the children, the safety of the children? And so we were actually able to um, pull together these voices of children that actually, between DOMA and freedom to marry, was referred to as helping them make that decision. And so I think that, one, it just demonstrates the power of that. And there was one story, it was like a young 4-year-old that was in the hospital, and she overheard, this was their story, she overheard somebody saying that that their parent could not administer them and put them, register them with the documents because they weren't their parent. And the child told their story from their eyes, saying, we're not a family. Are you saying we're not a family?" And the protection in that family. And so I think that particular story just resonated with me. And I think, again, what we are doing is elevating everyday stories. These are everyday stories of everyday parents, of just being in communities. And so those are the stories we want to tell, and the joy and what it means, like, to be a family, to be rooting your kid on in the hockey rink, or what that looks like. And so that everybody can understand, like, they're just a family, just trying to live their lives with happiness and joy in their family. So
The stories of the families that you're fighting for can be really powerful for you to, achieve the outcomes you're looking for. And at the same time, for some folks, it might be kind of scary to put themselves out there and tell those
was
stories. So how have you found that you can encourage and make people feel, empowered, safe, comfortable, brave to do
it's
that, so that the power of their influence can help advance
do it.
your
Yeah.
goals? Yeah.
I I mean, I think that's a real thing too, right? I mean, we have more out LGBTQ families than we ever had in the history, regardless of the attacks and regardless of the rollback. So we are here, and we are winning, and we are forming and sustaining our families. I think it's a very personal thing for every family and everybody, taking consideration of where you live, what your community is like, again, recognizing the differences. But what I have also found is there are so many families, they ask me, "What can I do?" "How can I help?" This is deeply personal to so many of us, and so they're ready to share their story. And so it's about giving them the tools, and that's what we do, right? Give them the tools of, "Here's how you can tell your story," supporting them through that. And that is one of the ways that we are trying to really elevate and uplift these stories, because 'cause they're just the everyday stories of the folks, but giving them the tools of how to do that, how to navigate that, and partnering with them to do that has been really, transformational for families themselves too.
And those families that you serve, I mean, they're across geographies and identities and political environments. How do you build a
Mhm.
team culture that stays grounded and
Yep.
resilient and sort of mission focused through all of that complexity?
I think what I have found is so, extremely special and unique, within our workforce, is it is deeply, deeply personal for every single person here. So whether it is you have a family, or that is part of your dream one day, or you're an ally, or like, have a loved one, there's something very personal about every single person that wakes up every day fighting with us, for LGBTQ families. And when the times are tough, when things are getting harder, or the days are getting longer, that being together, and that rooting each other on, and that sort of common mission, um, has really made the difference for us.
Now, you've worked in organizations that are really at the intersection of community advocacy, culture change for a couple decades now. What are some of the lessons that you have learned throughout your career that inform how you show up as chief executive today? And I'm always interested in things that, sometimes folks say, the way I do this today, I would have done very differently years ago. But from my
Right.
lessons learned, I put that wisdom to work so we can all benefit from it.
Yeah, I mean, do you have all day? I mean, this is a 25-year career, so there are lots of lessons, and I pride myself on those lessons, because, to your point, like, around how your mindset is, it just makes you stronger. It helps you make
Sure.
the organization stronger. So I would say there's probably maybe three things that I would elevate. Is number one is really every organization is good as their people. So being a people-centered, as you said, like, how do you bring people together during these difficult moments and growing organizations and growing impact? And so really being people-centered and ensuring that you're always thinking about that, because when your foundation is strong, you can do incredible things. The second thing is really building, what I'm excited to do is build a resilient organization, right? And so I like to say two things can be seen at the true time. You can have a really strong foundation, right, that is cemented in, and build an agile, nimble
Yeah.
organization. And so really being able to pivot, weather any storm, right? Because in my career, there's been so many, and whether it's economic, political, whatever it may be, really making sure on the back of your mind, you're always building the organization to withstand
Mhm.
all those challenges ahead, even if you don't know that they're coming, but really thinking ahead around what could be and how do we build the organization to be agile and really resilient to keep doing the work that we need to do while navigating some of those challenges that organizations inevitably will need to handle years down.
Yeah. It's one of those things that I imagine can be like challenging to just continue to reassure a team when there's things that are bad in the news or something. And how do you find that internal communication, internal influence plays into
Yeah.
this?
Um, I think people really need to be heard and listened to. I think that that's really important around, understanding where folks are at and being a trusted partner, um, and really locking into holding on to each other. I mean, again, I think during all the changes, it's like we have each other, and being able to really support each other, whether it's just listening or being there and then getting to work, right? Because families are counting on us. And so I find it's really helpful to know where they're at, listen to them and build that trust and um and work together to work through it. You have to just go through it, right? We had a children's I can refer to a million children's books, right? You can't go over it, you can't go through it. You've got to go through it. And as long
Right.
as you're going through it together and building that culture within the organization, I find that it makes a big difference. And you can work with people around that common goal, that
Mhm.
influence, like around where we need to be going.
Well, and talking about working together toward a common goal and sort of bringing people together to get through tough challenges, coalitions are such an important way
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
organizations do that. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your point of view on how you can create and
Yes.
work together as coalitions when you have, major challenges that you can't go at alone.
Yeah, I think for me and for us, I think as a society, I think the coalitions and making that tent as big, and as strong as can be is critical. I think nobody can go it alone. I think if we think about it that way, it's just not gonna be possible, especially in this climate and this environment. And so I believe so deeply in coalition building, and it is not easy work because you also have to think about you're bringing together so many leaders in different spaces that again too, right? Like whether they're struggling because they just got government funding cut or they're struggling because this happened. And so they're trying to make sure that they're doing the right thing to further their mission and then bringing folks together. And so what I found, which is kind of game changing about building coalitions is really identifying you're going to find with the influence, like listening to folks, understanding who they are, where they're coming from, and finding that sort of common interest of that common place that we can all say, yes, we are going to move that needle together and it will serve all of us and it will help rise all boats. And so that is like the key. Like you've got to understand what's our purpose. What can we do together better? as opposed to, just everybody trying to do that. So that is a lot of the work that I'm doing. And I'm learning that as I go. You should have me come back in another year because I'm actually been having so many different type of coalition
Yeah,
meetings and conversations. And one of our paths forward is to really build these efficient and effective coalitions across the board.
that's great. When you are learning and building this yourself, are there other coalitions that either you've been part of or seen from the outside that you sort of look to for inspiration where you feel like there's something about what they did that they did well?
When I just think about movements and effectiveness and how they've done it, I look really deeply about the past in these moments, right? Like, so when I think about the years of ACT UP, right? I mean, that was, people came together to move. And I think there was something really powerful about how they coalesced. When you all the way go back, right? The civil rights movement, like these are groups that came together to really move the needle and to fight for equality and racial justice or social justice. Again, there's always lessons learned. I think, the movement for freedom to marry, again, there's lessons
Understand.
learned there, but bringing folks together for, a common interest was really powerful. And those are the types of coalitions and movements that we're looking to build.
This episode is brought to you by the George Washington University's College of Professional Studies. With in-person and online programs ranging from master's degrees in public relations strategy to certificate programs in digital communications, GW offers more than just the credentials to help working professionals get ahead. It prepares them to be leaders in their field. Check out cps.gwu.edu for more information. Yeah, there's a lot we could certainly learn from the past. We actually featured, as a chief influencer, Michael Manganiello, and he was very involved with ACT UP earlier in his
Yeah.
career, and then went on to support the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation, and sort of took lessons from that and applied it to
Yeah.
the work that they did. So I think that
Yeah.
transition is so powerful that you talk
And
about.
I think Yeah, and I think really bringing people together that, again, really being very clear around the purpose, what we can do that's so strong together for that shared interests, and I think that's really the key, and in this moment in time is bringing together the funders that
Mm.
also want to support that work to really help the organization. So I think there's a couple of pieces that, I find that are gonna be really effective, as we move family equality forward. Yeah.
The landscape for nonprofit engagement is always changing, from how people give to how they consume advocacy. Um, how are you thinking about the evolution of family equality to meet those changing expectations? How people advocate differently, how people give differently.
Yep. I think we're right now living in a very uncertain, environment. Things are changing quickly. Things are changing even through AI, right? Giving
Yeah.
the economy, like this is to me, it is building that foundation of like that growth mindset, that innovation, and being able to really pivot. I mean, and knowing what the trends are and really what the returns are. And so as I think like, as I said, like, it's like building that strong foundation of those people and really having your North Star, but knowing when to be nimble, right? Knowing when to anticipate. And so for us, I think there are, um, individuals, I find people that care deeply about the work are really committed. And so really leaning into what we know is tried and true and folks that are really going to stand with us and by us. And again, similarly, with foundations who are, really deep into the work and strong partners. And we're really leaning into strategic partnerships again, the trend and really looking at what's worked and what hasn't worked in the past. And working with groups. This is all like the theme is working with people, right? Like nobody's working with businesses and supporters that might be unlikely, right? You might not think of them right away. But as we're building initiatives, whether it is for fertility or, women's rights or reproductive rights or like again, like who can we really support that has those common interests with businesses that are willing to say, my God, this is perfect. We have common interests in funding families, and some of our families are LGBTQ families. How do we do it together? So
Yeah.
those are some of the new innovative ways of how we're really thinking about bringing in support and, making the tent bigger in every way, shape, or form. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier how you connect, and, certainly digital is such a powerful way to bring people together, but you have that gathering in Provincetown. Do you
Yeah.
find that bringing people together physically you know, is it still popular? Is it more important than ever to galvanize people? And does it sort of help you build new advocates who might come together for that, who then wanna, write their member
Absolutely.
photos or something?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's, what you say, like the medicines and the candy sometimes, right? I mean, it's like you're coming together and you're having an amazing time, and your children see representation of other LGBTQ families. There's so many benefits of bringing people together. But I find when you bring people together, it sparks inspiration and energy and confidence to like really know we're not alone. So there's different ways to come together. I don't think it's one size fits all as the workforce is, it's hybrid. So I think there are some really powerful moments where when people can come together, magic can happen. And to your point is really building that across the country of bringing people together, connecting with each other, building community because things happen in communities now, right? They happen in the small towns and the bubble effect of that. And so there's huge opportunities for families. And that is something that we really lean into, not really forgetting that while we are national and creating awareness on a national landscape, we are also grassroots and like there with families in their communities, every day.
You just touched on something that we heard in our interview with Anna Palmer, co-founder of Punchbowl News. She talked about launching a
Yeah.
media organization, which is not an easy thing to do these days, and how their focus
Wow.
was not to build an audience, but to build a community. And she gave some
Yeah.
great examples about how they build community, and it sounds like that's maybe one of the secrets to your influence is making those connections across the people in your community to make it more of a force, and I wonder if you could just talk a little bit more about the power of influence within community.
Absolutely. I mean, I think when you're building community, there's a strength within folks, right? And again, while we think about this digital world and like people want to get back to connecting with each other. And so for us, we actually are people centered in our policy work, right? So everything is about the people, the stories we tell, the stories people are telling about themselves, the communities that come together and galvanize and advocate that move policy. And so we move policy through people and through communities and through that advocacy effort. So it is something that is critical to our impact and how we advance freedoms for our families.
Yeah, and several times you've talked about how things are very personal, and I get the sense that sort of to you, the personal touch of influence is really powerful, and it sort of flows through the work you've done, but also into the work of family and quality because of how personal the issue is.
Yeah, I absolutely. I mean, I I like you said, like, this is the perfect place for me to be because I have those 20 plus years of experience, but yet I wake up every day thinking about my family. I have had experiences, where my wife could not, register our daughter in a hospital. That's maybe why that story is,
Yes.
resonates so much with me, and uh, for me, longer the days of that influence of like it's like transactional. I think that's not how I operate. That's not how I influence, right? It is around listening and really knowing who you're trying to influence, I guess, if you're doing that and working together around that common goal. And so for me, it's personal. It's not transactional. It is not like I'm just trying to, like get to that next step. It is like it is really heart and head of everything that I do. And I think, you talk about influence. I use it in every layer of my life, whether it's my middle schoolers to, speaking, in our congressional meetings, right? And around really listening to people and understanding how do we move something forward that we both really deeply care about.
Is it harder to influence a middle schooler to do what you want or a member of Congress to do what you want?
I know, it's there's not much of a difference. I feel like me having children has been a game changer in everything that I do. Yeah, it's a tough I'll let you know. We're introducing a new bill, John Lewis Every Child Deserves a Family Act. We're reintroducing it, so I'll keep you posted. Why don't we see? We'll see what can be harder. But
I
I
want to
did
go.
influence my daughter. I did influence her. It was a very difficult thing, and I did not pull the "because I said so." It was like, how using those skills and those muscles around, how do I get her to join me in this decision?
Great. I want to go back though to something you said because we kind of glossed over it, but you're a parent of 3 kids and you've had the personal experience that your wife was not able to register one of your kids in the hospital. And you're now the CEO of this organization fighting to change those policies so that nobody else is in that situation. I mean,
You know,
that's that's
it
that's a lot.
it is such a gift, I will say, like, it is I knew the stakes coming into this role, and I knew, where we were at, and it is to me, it's such a gift because I am working every single day for my family and everybody's family. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. It's a very deeply personal mission for so many that I found too,
Is
right?
that a
So many.
story that I mean, I don't know if you're kind of directly advocating for policymakers, but are you, like, sharing that story directly with a member of Congress to talk about what that felt like and what that meant and why it's important that we make changes because that's not what our country should be about?
Yes, I will be sharing that story. And I think again, all the stories that so many of us have, it it's surprising too, that I think our families and I think our policymakers and I think, so many folks in leadership and influential positions don't really realize how vulnerable we are, right? And I think there was this idea once, marriage equality passed, like, we've got protections, and it's really not necessarily the case. There's a lot of vulnerability that families are having, and sometimes they don't even know,
Yeah.
like, vulnerable. So, yes, I plan and I will and I do share my personal story as much as I can, and I wanna uplift so many other stories, as well because there's hundreds and thousands of them to share.
Separate from this whole career path we've been talking about, something
Yes.
interesting about you from an influence standpoint is that you're an elected official and you're in a role where influence is very different being part of uh, a body, a board, than being the CEO of an organization. Can you talk a little bit about that experience, why you decided to do that, and have you learned anything about influence being a member of your local board of education?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a total honor, and been a privilege actually to serve, although people say, "Really? What is that what did you do to deserve that?" No, it's really, I think it's such an important role, especially in communities now. This is where a lot of those, like those sort of like the battlegrounds sort of happen, like in our local communities and in
Uh,
our school districts. And so what I have found, which has been an incredible learning and experience is, um, everybody on that in that table has it's not a political body, right? It's a public official, but it's not a political body, right? It does not, whether you're Republican, Independent, or Democrat, that is absolutely, not a part of that body of governance. And so coming together to focus, right, on our students and the quality of the education to give every child the education that they need and the belonging of every student is pretty amazing. It actually to be able to see the work when it's functioning, when it is a functioning body, to be able to, look past, right, any personal agendas folks have or any personal beliefs, and at the end of the day, there's every student, every kind of student, right? Different lived experience, different special education, like no matter where they are, they all deserve equality and excellence in their schools with belonging and safety. And so um, I think that level of influence, when we think about that, I do take with me every day because I'm also talking to folks, that might have different personal views, but at the end of the day, we believe in the values of family, right? And the unconditional love of family and the belonging of family. And so being able to take that into my work, and that level of influence. And also I will just end too with like really getting down into local communities. It's tough. I mean, it's really people care deeply, and they have different viewpoints, and bringing them together to influence and to educate and to have them trust this body around the decisions we make is really critical. And I think that common goal of being able to be a trusted leader and a trusted body to bring folks together around that common interest that we all have as a community. So
Yeah. What a unique experience to be able to have. I can't say I would wanna sign up for that myself, so I'm very, glad that you
you're not the
people like
only one. You're not the only
good thing
one.
people like you do it, though. Well, as
Thanks.
we come to sort of the close there, I wanted to just ask you a final question I love to ask our guests is, just think about influence, the topic of our show. How do you define influence today, and how has that definition evolved for you across your career?
Wow, that's a great question. And I love how you said today, because to your point, if you asked me that 20 years ago, I would have said something very different. And so I think um, influence for me today is really is it's coming together, to bring people together for, that common goal. So when I think about how do I influence or how am I gonna influence, whether it's staff or politicians or community, it's really a few things that come to my mind. It's being trusted, right? It's not an exchange anymore. It's not a tit for tat, or I'm gonna hold this over you, or you can do this, or because I said so. That's that's my children's talk, because I
Mhm.
said so. But again, in everything else. And so today, I think influence is really enrolling people and bringing them along. So whether it is influencing behaviors or influencing, how they're thinking about it or what they're going to do, it is really around knowing who you're talking to and really moving together and helping folks see, like that this helps them, this helps us, and more coming together, and that in a trusted way. And again, it's not so easy in a world that there's so much misinformation and so much nepotism and like all of that. And so it's more important than ever to be consistent and trusted and really build those relationships, whether it's online or not, right? It's like
Mhm.
if you're a trusted source, um, you can bring people along with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dara, as we kind of had this conversation about your role today, leading family equality and sort of how influence has shown up for you across your career, one thing just kind of struck me as a theme. It's really that word personal. You talked about bringing people along, getting people to come together, listening to them, but how everything is so personal nowadays when we influence, and we have to leverage those personal stories and those
Yeah.
personal connections and really think about that because you're trying to
Yes.
reach a very diverse audience. And for you, this issue is so personal. I mean, you shared that you have had the experience where your own wife was not able to register a child at a hospital the same way that someone from a different family would be able to. And that you want to change that. That personal story is something that has touched you and influenced how you show up, but it's also given you this sort of ability to connect with other families, policymakers, to say, look, this is personal to me. So for me, that
Yeah.
word that you used many times in the interview today, personal, really struck me. And, there's that old quote, all politics is local. Maybe what you're showing us is that all influence is personal. And if we want to be effective today with influence, whether it's in person, whether it's online, we have to find ways to highlight that it's personal and make
Yeah.
it personal. And I love hearing about the different programs that you have at Family Equality through that great acronym you gave us at the beginning, where you advocate, you connect, you educate, and how you do that in so many ways. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. It was just such a great conversation, and I'm really happy that you're doing this work and that you were willing to share some of your secret sauce and approach with us.
No, I really appreciate this has been a pleasure. I love listening to your podcast. I love listening to your work. So to be a part of that is a true honor. I'm so glad that I can share our work with your audience. And I hope folks, if they're interested to find out more, they can come visit us at familyequality.org. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Chief Influencer is a production of Social Driver. We help clients transform complexity into clarity with people-centered strategies. Whether you're looking to elevate the influence of your brand or of your leaders, check out socialdriver.com to learn more. For show notes or to nominate a guest, visit us at chiefinfluencer.org or follow Chief Influencer on LinkedIn.